Right, I don't have long, I've got work in a couple of hours. So, let's do this. So, in the video, Reasonable Questions for Anti-SJWs, Kevin, the one janitor, mentioned this.
Do you understand basic English syntax? Like, if I say this cat is pretty, I don't mean that all other cats aren't pretty. Like, do you really not get why saying all lives matter in response to Black Lives Matter is not only racially insensitive, but just patently ridiculous?
So apparently, all lives matter is racially insensitive and ridiculous, and that Black Lives Matter apparently isn't. Let's take a look at that, shall we? Okay, so let's have a look at Black Lives Matter first. And I think we need to make the point first that, yes, if you're a person who deals with black issues only, and we're talking mainly African American issues here, aren't we? Because BLM UK, BLM Canada, one or two small and the issues are completely different for those communities anyway. So let's just stick with the OG BLM. If you're an activist, a black activist who deals specifically in black issues, and you are passionate about it, you want to help your community, and that's why you take on the mantle of BLM, good for you. As long as you're not a racist, as long as you are actually trying to deal with all issues that affect them, including black and black crime, police brutality, economic issues, social issues, that's absolutely fine by me, as long as you also realise that police brutality is actually a universal thing and the stats back that up. A lot more white people get shot overall in the space of a year, although apparently there's a lot of nuance in the per capita things, but overall that happens, and it's a thing that affects everyone, and you recognise that really it demands a universal approach and a universal solution. However, then there's the other Black Lives Matter type people who are the majority, and these are the people who go around rioting. These are the people, although a minority of this majority, in fact they're a minority of the movement itself, who will go so far as to kill people, as evidenced in Baton Rouge and in Dallas. These are the people who are racist. These are the people who believe that police brutality and apparently white racism is the biggest issue affecting black people and the biggest reasons why people are dying. And these are the people who think that only Black Lives Matter and think that only all lives matter is a racially insensitive and ridiculous notion. Even though these other people, who tend to be the minority in BLM, who aren't racist and do agree that all lives matter, but their focus is Black Lives, these people don't seem to get that. And these are people who buy into the black victim narrative, the kind of weird victim cult that they've got themselves into. Not all black people are part of it, not all Black Lives Matter people are part of it, and not all black activists are necessarily part of this. But this whole thing of Black Lives Matter is coming up from that victim thing that people have pointed out. And really, how is this less racially sensitive, and how is this less ridiculous than all lives matter, for example? I just don't get it. This is a large group of people who are saying only Black Lives Matter, or Black Lives Matters more than everybody else, and that their issues are more pressing and their issues have more victim points and their issues are the only issues that matter. When we know that one, their issues aren't the only ones that matter, two, that they aren't necessarily any different to other people's, and also this big majority in BLM ignore black on black crime, they ignore the fatherless families, they ignore a lot of the social issues because they're victims. They can't possibly be anyone in the black community that may be causing issues for themselves. There is no self-blame here. Only the others are to blame. White people, for example. And now let's get into all lives matter. How the hell all lives matter? All lives matter. It's racially insensitive and apparently ridiculous is beyond me, Kevin. I don't know how you can get to that statement. I don't know how logically you went from A to B. I don't know. Firstly, it says all lives matter. Let's just break this down. All, which means everything, everyone, lives, as in black lives, white lives, Hispanic lives, Asian lives. You won't have seen my response, but I even included like frogs and cows as a kind of a joke. But yeah, all lives matter. And you know what matter means, don't you? All lives matter. How that includes all human beings. All lives matter. Now, of course, it kind of raises a few philosophical questions that aren't really relevant. How is that racially insensitive? That's as colourblind. That's as egalitarian, racially egalitarian. It's as equality driven as it can possibly be because it believes that all lives matter, all their issues matter, and that we must deal with all these issues. It takes a universal approach to the issue. And you might say that it's reactionary, and yes it is, but it's only reactionary to the rampant racism and just stupidity of Black Lives Matter. Not all black activists are like that, but sadly most of them, especially within the BLM and social justice movements, are like that. And this is why people have responded to this, and even black people have said all lives matter. Why? Because they see through the bullshit that Black Lives Matter wants to peddle to them. They understand black people and everybody else are not necessarily victims, and that a lot of the issues in the communities are kind of either forced through different means that aren't necessarily oppression. Maybe some individuals are causing problems for everyone, and that maybe, just maybe, these issues are universal and they aren't unique to any particular ethnic group. And it's also a fight against the racial nationalism, because there's now a White Lives Matter movement, and it's exactly the same as BLM. They're literally the polar opposites, only they haven't killed anybody yet. I don't understand how an egalitarian hashtag all lives matter is apparently racist. The only way I can imagine it's racist is because oversensitive ideologues, such as yourself, one janitor, claim it is because you think it is, and because, well, you're racist. I mean, you seem to think it only means white lives matter. That's what you really think. You think when we say all lives matter, we mean white lives matter, as if a mixed race guy like me thinks that only white lives matter, even though I'm part white and I'm part Asian and I'm also part black. Apparently, that means that I think white lives matter, even though I literally mean all lives matter. I mean, you lot like to be very literal, yet when we're being literal, apparently no, there's some hidden meaning behind that. That's the only thing I can get from you. When I look up all lives matter versus Black Lives Matter, I can only come to the realisation that all lives matter trumps it, because one has fallen quickly down the path of racial nationalism. It's pretty much something that has fallen into a victim cult, and I just don't see how that is going to help black people in the long run, whereas all lives matter can help black people, it can help white people, help Hispanic people. They can join together with everybody in a much more inclusive, literally, I'm not even trying to be social justice here, a much more inclusive, much more thoughtful. It creates an environment where people can actually work together because all their lives matter. They come in with the purpose of helping each other, and I don't see how that's a problem, whereas BLM tends to be very polarizing, and they just wonder why they're so divisive and why they're not getting anything done. So there you go, people. That's my thoughts on the issue. All lives matter versus Black Lives Matter. Obviously, all lives matter is better. It's not racially insensitive. It's not ridiculous. It's only ridiculous to ideologues and racists, because I can imagine a white supremacist saying the exact same thing that one janitor said. I can imagine an Asian supremacist saying that. I can imagine an Hispanic one saying it. To racists, all lives matter is ridiculous and racially insensitive to their own race. So that's all I gotta say, people. I've kind of rushed this one a little bit. So until next time, this has been Time with Man 93. Like, share the video, subscribe to my channel, donate to the Patreon, and I'll see you all later.